3CR, your station, your voice.
Coming up is a podcast brought to you by the dedicated and diverse volunteers at 3CR. Just a quick message before you get there. For the month of June, we're asking listeners to donate to the station to help keep us going. We rely on the generous donations of the community to survive. Go to 3cr.org.au/donate and show your support for community-owned and community-run media. Thanks for your support and happy listening.
Slavery is back.
Welcome to a place where private business profit from a captive labour force, yet pennies are spent on medical services to a population in which the Indigenous, the poor and the mentally ill are overrepresented. Where isolation, humiliation and degradation are facts of life. Welcome to prison.
It depends who's telling the story, I suppose. The prisoners would have one view, the people who work in the prison system would have another, and I think it's up to people to decide where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello and welcome to the Doin Time show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. And a warning, this episode of Doin Time contains audio descriptions of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who have died and graphic discussion of deaths in custody. This is Marissa and I'll be with you for the next hour. First up on the show, we will be joined by Rachana Rajan, Associate Legal Director in the Human Rights Law Centre's First Nations Justice team, with an extended interview on the Queensland Government's shameful adult sentencing laws and the ways they will harm kids, families and communities, particularly First Nations communities. After that, we'll bring you an interview with Brett Collins from Justice Action, who will give some important updates on the Youth Justice Senate inquiry. Justice Action will discuss their report. The Human Rights Law Centre and Change the Record have slammed the Queensland Government for passing laws that will sentence even more children to adult-length terms of imprisonment. The laws will lock up children for even longer and harm kids, families and communities. Rachana Rajan is an Associate Legal Director in the Human Rights Law Centre's First Nations Justice team. Rachana has extensive experience providing legal advice, representation and law reform advocacy for First Nations people and people in prison on civil law issues including over-policing, police misconduct, deaths in custody, prison conditions and parole decisions. I'd like to welcome Rachana to talk about the breaching of Queensland's own human rights protections, as well as international human rights laws and obligations that Australia has under the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which have actually been broken by the Queensland Government and severely targets First Nations children in particular. Hello, Rachana, welcome to the program.
Hi, Marissa. Thanks so much for having me.
Indeed, it's great to have you, and it's always good to talk about what's happening with marginalised communities. The Doin Time show has traditionally been a show that provides a safe environment for marginalised communities, and I'm wondering if you could just talk about what's going on with the laws and what the position is of the Human Rights Law Centre.
Absolutely. So the laws we're talking about are laws that the Queensland Government passed last week. These are laws that will send children to prison for much, much longer, so they'll have impacts for children, their families, the community and society as a whole. Combined with some laws that the Queensland Government passed last year, not only are more children going to prison for longer, but more children will be going to prison as well. And what we're really concerned about is prison is no place for any child, but most of the children that these laws will impact will be Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, children with disabilities and children with complex health needs.
And so what What has possessed the government to do such a thing, do you think?
Well, we know that the government is certainly not listening to the evidence or listening to human rights. So these laws are so bad that they're being looked at by the United Nations. We've had 2 independent human rights experts who advised the United Nations on human rights sound the alarm last week. So these experts are called the Special Rapporteur on Torture and the Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And what they've said are the laws are incompatible with basic child rights. They urge the Queensland Government to vote the laws down. And I guess what we're seeing in terms of why this might be happening is there's a broad pattern of discriminatory and punitive legislation across the country. You might have seen that in March, the Human Rights Law Centre supported a complaint to the United Nations, not just about youth justice in Queensland, but about the punitive approach across the whole country. So Queensland's approach is reflecting that, I suppose, but it is not having any regard to the rights of children or what actually should be done to address the reasons that children might be in contact with the criminal legal system in the first place.
So the laws are actually in place now, are they?
That's right. So the laws, they became law last week on Friday. And so what those laws did is they added a whole bunch of offences that children can already go to prison for, but the laws made adult length-long sentences for these offences. So the simple way of explaining that is a lot of the offences have had their maximum penalty be doubled. So many offences that had a 7-year maximum term of imprisonment are now 14 years. Offences that were 1.5 will now be 3, and there's a few offences that are now subject to maximum sentence of life in prison. And I guess to really paint a picture of what that means is in Queensland, children as young as 10 can go to prison. Like I said, it's children who are the majority of which, based on how the criminal legal system currently works, will be Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children with disabilities, both diagnosed and undiagnosed, and children with a range of complex health needs. So really it's subjecting children to a really, really long time in a harmful environment that we know causes harm. We know it doesn't address the reasons for offending and will leave everyone worse off than if the kids get out.
So basically it's an expansion of the number of offences where children can be sentenced as adults, exposing them to longer and harsher prison terms, including life.
That's exactly right, and it's an expansion of laws that the government put in place last year. So in December last year, the Queensland Government they passed legislation and made laws that did a whole bunch of things. Some of the really serious things were to remove the principle of detention as a last resort for children. And that's a principle that's well enshrined in international law. It recognises that children's brains work differently and prison is harmful for children, and there are other ways that you can address the reasons for offending. And it started this adult sentencing framework. So it introduced what the government is calling adult crime, adult time for 13 offences. They made the sentences longer and harsher, like you just said, and what we saw last week was the number of offences has expanded. So we've gone from 13 offences where children are sentenced as adults to 33.
So that really flies in the face, like it breaches the implementation of the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody.
It breaches so much, absolutely flies in the face of the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody. So since the Royal Commission, over 600 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have died in custody, and sending children to prison is totally incompatible with addressing deaths in custody. It's also incompatible with government's commitment to closing the gap. The Queensland Government's part of that agreement, and one of the targets is to reduce the rate of Indigenous youth incarceration by 2031, which is coming up soon, and laws like this just send more children who are First Nations into custody. It does not implement any of the government's commitments, and it's causing harm.
Essentially, of particular concern to me as a radio broadcaster and human rights activist is really the lack of lived experience and First Nations consultations in terms of any inquiry.
Yeah, that is really frustrating because First Nations communities have had the solutions for decades. We know that it's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community-controlled programs, services, housing and healthcare, and the wraparound support they community service can provide for kids at work. It's about addressing what children's needs are and not taking a punitive approach. It's really frustrating to have gone through 2 recent bills in Queensland where Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisations and leaders are repeating the evidence that's been heard since the 1991 Royal Commission, and there's a failure to invest in these solutions that community is calling for. Instead, we're seeing punitive laws that will result in bad outcomes for everybody and really harm First Nations kids and their families.
It's 1788 all over again. We live in a settler state, and it really is a draconian violation of human rights. I mean, it's really interesting. Queensland has had a really horrible track record. I used to interview Sam Watson, who's since passed away now, who's an elder in Queensland, and he talked a lot about Joe Yockey-Peterson and how, I mean, it's going back to that, isn't it?
Yeah, the reality is ever since prisons existed in Queensland, that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids have been extremely overrepresented in them. So I guess to paint a picture and really illustrate what you just said, Marissa, Queensland detains the most children on any given night in Australia. 70% of these kids are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, and if we're talking about kids aged 10 to 14, so 10-year-old kids that should be in year 4 in primary school baby teeth, around 80% of kids aged 10 to 14 are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander in Queensland. And in Queensland over the last year, in total, more than 100 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children aged 10 to 13 were in prison. So it's a crisis and it's urgent.
Can you comment on how Queensland has breached its own human rights protections as well as international human rights laws and obligations that Australia has under the Convention on the Rights of the Child?
Certainly. So there's 2 parts to that question. First, the Queensland laws and then the international laws. In Queensland, there's legislation called the Human Rights Act, which outlines rights that protect all Queenslanders, and the government has to consider those rights and pass legislation that's compatible with those rights. In this case, the government has suspended the Human Rights Act and said rights that apply to children and rights such as the right to liberty, it's admitted that those rights are breached by this legislation because the legislation sends children to prison, but it's claimed that there are exceptional circumstances for doing so. And this is part of a history of the Queensland Government, successive Queensland governments actually showing a disregard for human rights only when it comes to youth justice and the rights of Indigenous kids. So the only time that the Human Rights Act has been overridden or suspended in Queensland have been for youth justice laws that have disproportionate impact or known that they will have disproportionate impacts on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids. And in terms of international law, the Human Rights Act is based on international law under various treaties and other rules and obligations. And those laws were acknowledged in the government documents about the laws. And again, the government claimed that there were exceptional circumstances for overriding these laws, but they've not provided any legitimate justification for doing this. So the UN experts that I commented on earlier, they've said in no uncertain terms that the laws are incompatible with basic child rights, and they urge the Queensland Parliament to vote them down.
We all know too that children with disabilities and also First Nations children, often English can be their second language, and that they're really, the way that there are just simply no culturally appropriate tools to assist them in court and in prison. Children need to be on country.
Yeah, and I guess one thing that it's really frustrating to have to repeat over and over again that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisations and leaders are calling for is what, we should be looking at policies and laws that prevent children from having interaction with the criminal legal system and going to court in the first place. So if instead of arresting a child, why are you not looking at the reasons why they've come into contact with police, making sure they're connected with community organisations, community support and connected to country, looking at things like schooling, housing, healthcare, employment opportunities, activities, good positive networks, because we know that the moment a child is in the criminal legal system and has contact with the system, significant harm starts from there and actually makes it more likely that they will have contact with the criminal legal system for the rest of their lives. And that's concerning because we know that the system doesn't work.
And morally and generally, isn't stolen generations and generational trauma, those are things that can happen well into the future. It's still happening now.
That's exactly right. So we talked earlier about how these laws and punitive approaches to youth justice affect kids, families, entire communities and have bad outcomes for everybody. That's because, sending a child to prison rips them from community. There's generational trauma resulting from that child's experience, but also the experience of that family. And in terms of the broader community, prison doesn't actually reduce crime. So not only is it harmful and discriminatory and punitive to be passing laws like this, it just doesn't make sense. Government should be investing in solutions which are things that address reasons for contact with the criminal legal system in the first place.
It's been great having you on the show. Are there any final comments that you wanted to make before we conclude?
Really like to make clear that these laws just need to be repealed. The entire adult penalties framework should be abolished, and government should be listening to First Nations peoples and First Nations organisations about what works. Like you said, they have the answers. The answers have been around for decades. It's about care, not prison.
Yeah, we need communities, not prisons. And in case people have just tuned in, it's approximately 4:17, and you're listening to an interview with Rachana, Associate Legal Director in the Human Rights Law Centre's First Nations Justice Team. And it's actually good that there is a First Nations Justice Team at the Human Rights Law Centre. Very important.
Yes, it's important work, and we really try to work in partnership with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisations who've been doing the work for a long time and, like I said, have the answers. So really appreciate being able to chat to you and you get the system. It's been great to talk about it for everyone listening.
Rachana, thank you so much. Can you just tell us the Human Rights Law Centre website? And I believe people can go on there and read the reports.
That's correct. So if you go to hrlc.org.au, so that's HRLC for the Human Rights Law Centre, our submissions on the laws and our complaints about youth justice are on there, and that includes a lot of work we've done with our partners, Change the Record.
Also, before you go, and this is not a trick question, but I just wanted to let listeners know that we have our radiothon coming up in June, and 3CR actually provides alternative media and has communities on here that are deprived of a voice. Rachana, why, as someone from the Human Rights Law Centre, why do you think listeners should donate to 3CR and in particular to the Doin Time show?
Oh my gosh, there are so many reasons. One of the things I've really appreciated is the opportunity to learn from people who have lived experience, people who are doing the work, their voices that mainstream media doesn't really centre. So hear directly from people impacted and people who have the answers, and that's why I would say do that.
Thank you so much, Rachana, for that contribution. And it's I kind of sprung it on you, but I just thought, it'd be really great to have someone, talk about that. And it's not hard, really. I mean, you've actually said exactly the right thing, that listeners do need to donate because 3CR is a very unique show. So, unique radio station.
That's exactly right. It's a no-brainer, and we really appreciate how all the detail you explore the complexities of youth justice and imprisoning kids and imprisoning First Nations children. We see that reported in mainstream media really differently, so great work again.
Thank you so much, Rachana. It was lovely to chat with you, and let's talk again soon.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye. And you just heard an interview with Rajan, Associate Legal Director in the Human Rights Law Centre's First Nations Justice Team. And you heard an extended interview on the Queensland Government's shameful adult sentencing laws and the ways they will harm kids, families and communities, particularly First Nations children.
Organising for Prison Abolition is a public lecture and panel discussion hosted by Flat Out and People Against Prisons Aotearoa, taking place on June the 4th in Naarm, Melbourne. Come join a mix of community organisers who are experimenting with ways to dismantle the prison industrial complex and work towards a more just society. 5:30pm on Wednesday, June the 4th at Trades Hall Ballroom and Bar. Let's organise for a future without prisons. Tickets available through Eventbrite. Flat Out is a 3CR supporter.
Wake up every morning, put the kettle on, realize it's almost midday, half the day is gone. 'Cause mornings ain't easy to get out of bed. Need to get motivated, but I think I'll stay home instead. But there's so much work to be done, rest I can't afford. You know I'd rather be busy than bored. Stuck in the rat race, working for the man, running in circles for cash in hand. Life's not meant to be easy. Well, so they say, ruled by the almighty dollar. But what's the price you pay? But there's so much work to be done, rest I can't afford. You know I'd rather be busy than bored. Isn't that right? So get up in the morning, do the best you can, work hard for your family instead of working for the man. But there's so much work to be done, rest I can't afford. You know I'd rather be busy than bored. I'd rather be busy. 'Cause 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 'cause
3CR's annual Radiothon fundraiser is almost here.
This June we'll be asking for your donations to support 3CR.
Your donation during Radiothon keeps the station radical and enables us to give voice to our community for another year.
All donations over $2 are tax deductible.
3CR Radiothon is coming. Show your support by donating this June.
3CR, your station, your voice. Your station, your voice. Throughout the month of June, we're asking you to support fierce, independent and community-controlled media by making a donation to our Radiothon.
We'll be taking donations online, over the phone and in the station to help keep 3CR going for another year.
The 3CR Radiothon kicks off in June. To donate, go to 3cr.org.au, call the station on 0394198377
Or drop in at 21 Smith Street, Fitzroy during business hours. 3CR, your station, your voice.
CR's annual Radiothon fundraiser is almost here.
This June we'll be asking for your donations to support 3CR.
Your donation during Radiothon keeps the station radical and enables us to give voice to our community for another year.
All donations over $2 are tax deductible.
3CR Radiothon is coming. Show your support by donating this June.
3CR, your station, your voice.
Keffiyehs are Palestinian scarves, and they're a symbol of support for justice for the Palestinian people. From the traditional black and white keffiyeh to an array of modern designs, explore the range and order online or drop by 3CR during business hours. Wear your support for the rights of Palestinians. Go to keffiyehs.org.au, that's KUFIYAS.org.au. A 3CR supporter.
Seem like much, but I'm crying now. Oh, I had you then. Somehow I've got tears now. Don't tell me what I should be feeling now. Don't ask me to smile. That might take me seem like much, but I'm hurting now. Oh, thanks a lot for telling me how I should feel. I see you love sad girls, we've got sex appeal. Don't ask me to smile. That might take me a little.
history, share, not ignore. Need it, acknowledge, bring it to the front line as a nation. Black history, share, not ignore. Black history, share, not ignore. Black history, share, not ignore. Need it, acknowledge, bring it to the front line as a nation.
Did you know that Western Sahara is Africa's last colony? The issue of Western Sahara was raised in the Eddie Mabo case referencing terra nullius. Western Sahara is illegally occupied by Morocco. Indigenous Sahrawis are denied their right to self-determination. France continues to veto United Nations human rights observation in Western Sahara. Sahrawi people are being killed by Israeli drones. Like to learn more? Become informed. Become an Australia Western Sahara Association member at awsa.org.au. Australian Western Sahara Association is a 3CR supporter.
And you're back with the Doin Time show, and pretty soon we are going to be speaking with Brett Collins from Justice Action. Sorry about the technical difficulty there, but we'll be speaking with him shortly. Before we do, though, I just wanted to give you just a bit of a quick intro about what we're going to be doing in the interview. So we'll be looking at the Justice Action report that they contributed to the Youth Justice Senate inquiry. The Senate inquiry into Australia's youth justice and incarceration system on 3rd February 2025 consisted of 10 panels following 222 submissions from organisations and experts across Australia. The calls for changes came during the wake of the second young person to die in WA youth custody in under 1 year. Across Australia, 17 youth detention facilities hold 845 children, and 63% of those are Indigenous. Australia and New Zealand Children's Commissioners presented evidence into the inquiry. And we've spoken to Brett about this, and Brett has often been on our show as a very special guest quite regularly over the years, and specifically talking also about having computers in cells, restorative justice, external counselling. And interestingly, one of the things that came through was that, you know, that some of the people of this inquiry and some of the judges need to at least spend one day in a prison cell to see what it's like. And hello, Brett. Welcome to the program.
Yes, hello, Marissa. Good to be back again.
I don't know what... You were lost.
I haven't worked it out either. I've got some problem here with the communication. Doesn't matter. We've got backup.
Doesn't matter. Everything is... We've still got plenty of time. So tell us about the report and about the inquiry, Brett.
Well, look, it's quite exciting actually, because the kids in youth justice across Australia and of course in Victoria, they are not getting access to the things that the adults are getting in prisons. So in a number of prisons, including Victorian prisons, a number of the adults, in fact, we get quite constant calls from Victorian prisoners. They have access to computers in their cells. Some of them have access to do their cases, and their people are actually able to use their time properly, which is a really good thing. In New South Wales, like every person in a New South Wales prison is getting access to a computer, either a computer or computer tablet, which means they can make phone calls to their family, to their friends, selected contact list, and access to some limited websites, which is really important. So that's really for the adults, but the kids themselves, who are in a lot of ways more important than adults, have not had access to computers in their cells, tablets, communication, information. All that stuff hasn't got through to the kids. And we went into the Senate inquiry back in just before the federal election, and went in there in strength. We took with us, we had John Dowd, AOKZ, and a team of people who were arguing about the entitlement of children themselves in detention to have access to the same services as adults, and we're able to highlight a lot of stuff. So really, this is the working behind that.
Fantastic. So you, a few weeks ago, then the Community Justice Coalition presented to the Youth Justice Senate inquiry, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. That's right. No, that was very significant. I mean, look, in some ways it's really obvious. I mean, if they have prisoners, kids, sitting in cells for the majority of the day, so they're 14 hours a day they're sitting in their cells. If you can't deliver service to them, services that are effective, the services like restorative justice, where you have a chance to talk to the people who are affected by what you did, or access to education, access to counselling, access to music, learning those sort of things. The effect of the delivery of those services is undoubtedly reduces the recidivism. It keeps people engaged, apart from the fact that they're not bored anymore. Instead of sitting in a cell watching television, they can actually do some good stuff. So, the stats are clear. Restorative justice reduces the charges by 38%. Music reduces recidivism by 60%. This is from the US. And education reduces crime, they say, by 35%. So, all these things would make an enormous difference if they were delivered to the kids, to the children in their cells, and it's not happening.
And Victoria is actually one of the worst states, isn't it, where the children in prison are not getting access to the external services that would make a difference?
Well, look, in some ways, it's quite amazing what's happened down in Victoria. Like, they had a series of inquiries. They had an inquiry, in fact, by the Auditor General. So there's a guy whose responsibility it is to assess where the money's being spent, and he's an objective person. And this guy, Dave Barry, who's acting Auditor General, came back to us and said, well, look, I agree with you. There's a serious issue here. We'll look at this, he said. But look at what we said previously in our report. He said a report looking at youth justice, and it's just outrageous what's happening there. Absolutely outrageous. And then the most amazing thing of all is that every child in detention in Victoria costs $2.8 million a year per child. Now, a staggering, amazing figure. Like every adult, 149,000 in Victoria, and every kid, 2.8 million. What? And then we were trying to work out, well, where's the amazing money going to? How is it that you have a cell which is a cell, whether it's an adult or a child, and one cell costs 149,000 a year, the other costs 20 times as much. So where's that money going? Who's actually getting the benefit of that? And how is it that 85% of kids in detention return? They actually return and back before the courts again, 85%, according to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. So these are amazing figures, and we dug down really carefully, because the one thing was at least Victoria is saying what it's doing, and we discovered that there's over 500 employees for the 93 children. You got to say, what the hell are they doing? And where's that? Why shouldn't that money, instead of being put into all these employees doing God knows what, why shouldn't it go out into the communities from where these kids come? So over 63% of kids in detention are Aboriginal kids. 63%. So the money could so much easier go out to the Aboriginal communities from where these kids are coming. And of course, they're kids who've been disadvantaged and had all these problems and things like that. That money would make a world of difference.
Yeah, and what about, and you and I have talked about this on other shows too, about the fact that there has to be external counselling and providing trusted external counselling without a conflict of interest, with a security role, because basically people like the workers in prison, they can't go around counselling children there. It conflicts.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And also, look, quite honestly, even the teachers, to be quite fair, I mean, we don't doubt at all the teachers are solid and trying to do their best. I don't question it for a moment. But the problem is that the kids are, almost all of them have been expelled from school. They don't want to do education. Reading and arithmetic, reading and that sort of stuff. It bypassed them. That didn't work for them. And so any teacher that's where they're sort of sitting in a classroom, they're throwing things, taunting at the teacher, saying things, horrible things, playing with each other. That's the reality of a life in those two juvenile justice centres there in Victoria. And so to not use the time in their cells when they're by themselves and give them not hard education, but we're talking about access to music, access to art, access to learn things about culture, access to their elders, learning stuff that interests them instead of trying to force feed them in a situation where other naughty boys and girls are dragging them all around the place and having fun. So it's obvious. It's accepted that those things like, as I say, restorative justice, music, art, all those things, education in its other forms, those things have a very, very useful effect on people. They are no longer bored. They feel positive about themselves. They're engaged, and then to not give them access to those services, even in the new youth centre they're talking about in Cherrybrook. Not even considered at that stage of giving access to the internet for those kids when it's available for adults in the ACT for 17 years. New South Wales has it now for, I reckon, probably about 3 or 4 years. It's beggars belief, and we're going in really hard now, going into all the politicians and into the minister, and we're just about to do a media blitz too, because we can't stand by and allow this to happen.
Exactly. And in fact, the thing that's actually most appalling as well, Brett, looking at the criminal age, raising the age, that Victoria's really made a backflip there, hasn't it?
Well, that's right. Look, unfortunately, what we've got is a bit of an attempt by governments to appear as though they're being tough on crime. It's going to solve the criminal issue. Of course, it doesn't. It's ridiculous. Never has worked. The harsher they are, the more likely it is that children who are put in detention, who are locked up, in fact, do worse. In fact, there's a lot of research to say that two people doing the same thing, if they decide one person goes to jail and the other person is allowed out in the community, the result of the person going to jail for the same sorts of behaviour is a lot worse in the future, and most importantly for kids. So kids, if you're spending $2.8 million a kid per year, you're talking about massive money. You're talking about damage happening for the rest of their lives. You're talking about a less safe community. It's almost like a conspiracy to end up with scapegoating First Nations people and to point the finger at them and then spend all the money on all these psychiatrists and youth workers and a whole lot of people who hop around. 5 people per kid in detention. Yeah, right.
Exactly, and what does it achieve? Nothing, because there's got to be community, led programs and Aboriginal-led programs.
Absolutely. Well, yeah.
I don't know, because I'm just having a look here at some of the report that Justice Action wrote, and a few other bits and pieces that you sent me today. And what I found really interesting, I want to see what you think of this, is that in April 2023, Victoria made an announcement to raise the criminal age of responsibility to 12 by the end of 2024, and then to 14 in 2027. Then, in August 2024, Victoria announced that they would no longer raise the age of criminal responsibility to 14, but remain committed to 12. What do you reckon of that?
Yeah, no. Look, all you're talking about there is really it's politics, and so that's now you're talking about a government which is running scared and thinks that they need to look tough. But look, the reality of it is that those are the sort of things where politicians can run away. But what we have is now a chance for delivery of services, which is going to break down the isolation of detention. Now we're talking about a game changer, and instead of all these people floating around and taking money right, whilst these Aboriginal kids, First Nations people, the children are being locked in and acting as though they're doing something, we're saying, no, you can't exploit these children and make it sound as though you're doing something good for them. You're not. And that money should be spent, first of all, making sure they have access to the services that make the difference. You have no excuse not to deliver those services. And secondly, they should never be in there in the first place.
Absolutely, Brett. So tell us more about the presentation that you all made, Justice Action and the Coalition made to the inquiry.
Look, the presentation was pretty forthright. Actually, look, we were lucky because we have John Dowd. He's the International Commission of Jurists president. Has been for the world. He was vice president for a year. He's a global figure, and we had beside him Elizabeth Everett, AC. The first Chief Justice of the Family Court of Australia on the United Nations Human Rights Council and of the World Bank. So they've been working very, very hard, working beside us and presenting the arguments to ensure that people do get the external services, because the external services are key to it. That's what the point that has been understood, slowly understood, that unless you have external services going into people who are in detention, then they don't get any services at all. They get nothing. So it has to be external, because, as you pointed out, the conflict of interest to offer counselling, right, offering psychologists employed by corrections, the people who lock you up, is outrageous. There's such a conflict of interest. You don't have any effective counselling at all, because they're reporting and making decisions on whether you are to be released or whether to be changed to classification or transfer. So if you were honest to the counsellors, that would be stupid. You'd be mad. So, of course, it's not effective. No effective counselling, first of all. It means that, and quite often it's actually, it's very efficient as well, because if counselling is external counselling, then you have an external service which is often paid for by government. So it's already paid for, very efficient. It means the state government doesn't have to pay it. Corrective services doesn't pay for it. You've got it already paid for. And then, most importantly, when you're out, when you're actually released, it's existing for you when you get out. So if you're, for example, a First Nations person, then access to the Aboriginal medical services, Aboriginal legal services, access to your particular group, whatever that group is, from Iraq, from another country, then you have access then to that particular service, and it's existing for you when you get out. That's really important. And last of all, it's really important because in your cell, then you have access to people external to you. So although they might hold your body, they're holding you there. You're in a cell and you're locked in. Yes, they've got that, but they can't prevent you from using your time yourself and linking across to people in the community through the internet, to people whom they can't disagree are good and positive, pro-social is the term they use, and that means you have access then to your culture, access to positive things in your cell, and that means it's emotionally important because you're not isolated anymore. So it's effective, it's efficient, it's existing for you when you're released, and then it's emotionally important because you remain a part of the community. Good one?
You know, Brett, you never cease to amaze me. I mean, you've been doing this work for so long now. It's been...
Okay, well, look... Yeah,
and
you
bring lived experience too, don't you, from prison?
Well, of course. Okay. Well, quick 10 years. Not that quick.
Now, before you go, our radiothon is coming up again here at 3CR in June,
yes.
And the Doin Time show has to raise $1,000.
Wow.
Can you just let listeners know why is it? Yeah. Why do they need to donate?
Yeah.
Why do you think they need to donate?
Well, gee, I think getting the word out and allowing the community to speak and to hear one another, I think that's so essential. And making sure that each area feels as though it's included. So I think that's an extremely important part of 3CR's work. So you do that really well. We're really pleased to be engaged with you guys. That's for sure.
Thank you so much for coming onto the program, Brett.
Okay, thank you, Mister, once again. Lovely to speak with you.
You too. I hope you're not too drained. That was a big one.
Not at all.
Have a good one. Take care.
All the best. You too.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And that was Brett Collins from Justice Action speaking about lots of things, really, in particular a report that Justice Action wrote for the Senate inquiry in regards to so-called youth justice. And yeah, jump on the Justice Action website and and have a look at some of those really, really important reports. Very, very important.
The new International Bookshop's Big Red Book Fair is back for 2025. We'll have thousands of second-hand books for $3 each, 10% off new books, and a great moment to support Melbourne's longest-running left bookshop. This year, the fair is on Saturday, the 21st of June, 9am to 5pm in the ETU Ballroom, Trades Hall, 54 Victoria Street, Carlton. Can't wait to see you there. New International Bookshop is a 3CR supporter.
Public transport's great.
What's not great is that unless you've got a radio with you, you can't listen to 3CR when you're on it.
Until now. The Community Radio Plus app lets you listen to us wherever you are.
Get on board and search Community Radio Plus wherever you get your apps.
Time's on my mind when I had you by my side. Am I thinking loud? Do I want you around?
Do you have a few children's picture books or footy boots that your kids have outgrown but want to find them a loving home? Well, drop them in at 3CR and put them in the Books and Boots bin. Books and Boots regularly sends pre-loved children's picture books and sports footwear to remote and regional First Nations communities and children across the country. Contact us at Books and Boots or go to the website www.booksandboots.org.au. We love a good book.
And you're back with the Doin Time show. It's 4:55 and we're nearing the end of this very special broadcast, which is dedicated to children inside, in particular First Nations children, but all children inside. And we actually had 2 extended interviews with Brett Collins, and also first up we spoke to Rachana from the Human Rights Law Centre, and unpacked a lot of things in regards to youth justice, or so-called youth justice, in Australia, particularly in Victoria and Queensland. So we're nearing the end of our show. Please donate to the upcoming Radiothon, which is happening at 3CR, and donate to all shows at 3CR and also to the Doin Time show, which has to raise $1,000 and to keep our show on air for another year. And if you can't wait, you can donate right now. Pick up the phone, 9419 8377, and it's tax deductible if it's over $2. But make sure you do it before the 30th of June, otherwise you won't get your tax back for the donations. So we have 1 minute left and I'm out of here. Stay tuned every Monday from 4 to 5 for the Doin Time show. And it's goodbye from Marissa. Stay safe. Kindness costs nothing. Look after each other.
As long as you a true fella, as long as you a real fella. All the people of different races with different lives in different places, it you the one who's gonna stand up and be counted? Are you the one who's gonna be there when we're shouting? Are you the one who's always ready with a helping hand? Are you the one who understands this family plan? Black fella, white fella, yellow fella, any fella, it doesn't matter what you color, as long as you a true fella. All the people of different races, with different lives, in different places, it doesn't matter which religions, it's all the same where the ship is sinking. We need more brothers if we're to make it. We need more sisters if we're to save it. Are you the one who's gonna stand up and be counted? Are you the one who's gonna be there when we shout it? Are you the one who's always ready with a helping hand? Are you the one who understands this family plan? Stand up and be counted. Stand up and be counted. Are you the one who's always ready with a helping hand? Are you the one who understands this family plan?
3CR, your station, your voice.
Did you enjoy listening to that podcast? 3CR is a community radio station, and you, the listener, are a part of that community. Right now, it's our radiothon. We need you to pitch in with a few dollars to keep the station going. We can't do it without you. It's easy. Head to 3cr.org.au/donate. Your donations really matter.